you today about truck driving, living in a truck, driving over the road, and working because it's not RVing, as some people might think that it is. So anyway, stick around. We'll be right back with that story. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about living in a truck, what it's like to be a truck driver, what it's like to work over the road trucking, which is one of the types of work that you can do as a truck driver. And we have a few people here already. Omar is here. Wheelman is here. Wheelman lives in Portugal, in Spain here. And Ryan is here from Saskatchewan. Hall Phase from Toronto. Katie is here. Munchkin Pringles while watching... right now. Pringles are awesome. Not as good as Doritos, but Pringles are awesome. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, what I was thinking about this morning as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today and what I was going to do is, what I'm trying to do with these, not just telling you stories about driving truck and being a professional truck driver and whatnot, but trying to give you some information for those of you who may want to consider being a truck driver, what it's actually like to be a truck driver, what the life of being a truck driver is, and those types of things. One of the questions that students at the truck driving school used to ask me was, why don't you drive truck anymore? And I'm probably the atypical truck driver. I mean, I was always curious and always kind of an academic mind, like books and those types of things. So, I ended up driving truck because I kind of went into that area in, that saying in life that if you don't change the direction in which you're headed, you're going to end up where you're going. And for a long time, I was headed towards driving a truck. And the other thing about driving a truck was, I was what they called a runner. But you can only work that hard for a few months and then you got to take time off. And that was one of the benefits for me of driving truck long haul and working for a personnel agency was that I could take time off, and I did. And in 1996, I took just about a month off, and I went and pedaled my bicycle around Scotland. I went on a self-supporting bicycle tour. So that's where I'm going to give you some sort of insight into what my life was as driving a truck. It's not going to be typical for most people. Most people who choose driving truck for the long haul. When I say long haul, I don't mean long haul truck driving. What I mean is that they do it for their lifetime. They pace themselves is what I mean to say. They drive their 8 or 10 hours a day, get into the truck stop, get some rest, get some sleep. They've got the routine down. They make sure that they get home a couple of times, a couple of days a week. And so they pace themselves, right? You can't possibly do what I was doing when I was driving truck, running 3,000 or 4,000 miles a week every week. You cannot sustain that for very long. And when I was driving truck, I was a runner. I was the company runner. If a load needed to get somewhere tomorrow, I was the one that they called. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, talk about living in the truck and some stories about other people. Carrie's here from Minnesota. Wheelman asked me, he says, Happy Easter everybody else, and it's Good Friday. We're all in lockdown here. And, very nasty post this morning came across on the Facebook feed from one of the people that I know, and was saying that, BC ferries are full. People coming from Vancouver Island over to the coast, going to their cottages and visiting extended family and those types of things. So I don't know how it is with you and where you live. I do hope that everybody's safe. I do have some challenges believing that, we're fixing this problem, this current crisis we have, because some people are obeying the rules and some people are not. And when some people are not, it makes it very difficult for the rest of us to continue to self-isolate, especially when, it tends to be that for the most part, it tends to be government workers who, they're still working. Some of us on the other hand are not working. And, there's only so much relief available. So I don't know. It's interesting to see what's happening right now, and I don't think that this can be sustained for much longer. Andre, I can't wait for this to be over. Yes, you and me as well, Andre. And I'm hoping that it's the next couple of weeks by the beginning of May. Andre, my CDL road test was canceled due to the virus. And yes, hello from Paris. How are you, my friend? Good Friday. Happy Good Friday to everybody else as well. And Wheelman there in Portugal was asking me, he says, why are trucks in Europe single axle? And he's got two reasons that he thinks. One is economy, and the other reason is maneuvering considerations. Yes, it's both of those things. Single axle trucks, they're less weight because you've only got one axle under the back of the tractor. They're easier to maneuver in and around small places. And of course, Europe is, the larger metropolitan cities as well. The trucks just aren't as big. I mean, they carry as much weight, but they're not as big. The same as, but different here in North America. Europe did not grow up with the motor car. I mean, most of these European cities were there long before the motor car. So trying to get trucks in and around these cities can be the best of a challenge, at any time. So the trucks tend to be smaller. And as well, there's more economy because you have less weight, you have another axle. It's not as much resistance going around in corners and those types of things, so they get better fuel mileage. I have heard stories, I haven't verified this because I never really drove a single axle truck. All of the trucks that I drove were tandem axle road tractors. You put me in a day cab. I've driven a day cab a few times. Just to distinguish the difference between a road tractor and a day cab, a road tractor has a bunk on it with a bed in it. That's a road tractor. And a day cab is like a big pickup truck that pulls semi-trailers. And personally, it's not, for me personally, just because of my experience of driving over the road and driving road tractors most of the time, a day cab, a big pickup truck that pulls semi-trailers, that's not a truck for me. That and there's nothing worse than sitting in a day cab waiting to get loaded for 2 or 3 hours, and you can't lie down. You can't sit in the bunk. You can't get away from the steering wheel. You're sitting behind the seat. I mean, you can't even doze off. I think day cabs should be outlawed personally. At least if you had a little bunk, that was 18 inches wide or 2 feet wide, at least you could go and lie down while you're waiting for your truck to be loaded and get a bit of rest. So that's all there. My friend Farron is here from South Africa. Hall phase, how has the virus affected truck driving generally? All phase truck driving has really minimal impact on truck driving. Actually, most of the people are saying that, truck drivers are the heroes. They're up there with grocery store workers and healthcare workers and those types of things. So it minimal impact on truck driving. And I mean, truck driving is a very solitary exercise anyway. I mean, you just back into the door and they unload the trailer or pull in wherever it needs to be to get the truck unloaded. Giveaways. What is the craziest thing you've ever seen on the road? I've seen some pretty crazy things on the road. Giveaways. Let me give that some thought and I'll get back to you. Just remind me. Jonathan's living there in New York City. He's getting anxious to go back to work. Andre, New York City is going to take a while to recoup from this. Yes, there's no doubt about that. I mean, New York City is definitely the epicenter there in the States. My friend Janet's here. No, you're not late, Janet. Didn't really get too much yet. We're still kind of catching up and talking here. We got hit the hardest in New York City. I feel bad for the essential workers. The virus outbreak changed everything, and it will. Yes, absolutely. All right, so one of the stories of truck driving. A lot of people romanticize truck driving, and there's little doubt that truck driving has been romanticized. I mean, Smokey and the Bandit, Convoy, all these other movies that make truck driving to be this wonderful, great thing that you can go and do and see the country and see places and those types of things. That's not really truck driving at all for a lot of people. You have to realize that as I was talking about yesterday, most truck driving places where you deliver to are on the outskirts of town in industrial areas. And if any of you have spent any time in industrial areas, they're not sexy. They're ugly, they're dirty, they're noisy. They got big trucks running past. They're usually next to an interstate. So there's traffic thundering by all the time. 380 says the only romance you get out of trucking is the bunk. And let me just clarify that, because some of you may not understand what romance means when the trucking industry has been romanticized. What I mean by romanticized is that, they put a spin on it that trucking is awesome, that it's the greatest thing you'll ever do. And for the first year, I would say that, truck driving was really awesome. I loved it. But after the first year, as 380 has now said, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And, near 3 years into my job, the dispatchers would say to me, "Oh, you're going to go to Florida." And I just look at them and go, it's 1,200 miles of interstate I got to look at. And that was basically it because, so Farron says never rely on movies to understand things most of the time. And that's exactly right. And trucking, there are so many inaccuracies in trucking. I mean, Smokey and the Bandit, for example, I think it's, I figured it out at some point that they were 1,900 miles to run and get that load of beer. If you haven't seen Smokey and the Bandit, you definitely, that's your homework for tonight is to watch Smokey and the Bandit. It was 1,800 miles. Anyway, I think I figured it out that they had to run at an average speed of 82 miles an hour in that truck to make that run with a beer. And you're talking, it was the 70s. I think it was like a 77 Kenworth. It had a 425. It had a 425 horsepower Caterpillar diesel in that truck. I know it did. A 400 mechanical diesel engine. And they had a load of beer on coming back. So they were running out 80, 90, let's just say 80,000 pounds coming back on that thing. They were running 80,000 pounds. There's no way on any green planet that 4 1/4 Caterpillar diesel engine in that truck would run out 82 miles an hour. So that means that most of the time to run out at an average speed of 82 miles an hour to make that run, they would have had to run at 100 miles an hour most of the time. Most tractor trailers will not do 100 miles an hour. Very few tractor trailers with a load on will do 100 miles an hour. So thinking that they are going to average 82 miles an hour in that truck, no, probably not. So anyway, Andre, my instructor told me that I should not be checking my blind spot when changing lanes in the bus and should only use the mirrors, but I doubt that is true. Yeah, that's definitely not true, Andre. That's misinformation. Damon, it really incenses me that the United States has quelled in on itself because of errant sequence of nucleotides that cannot be seen without a specialized microscope. I hurt for everybody involved. Yeah, and I don't know how much longer we can do this, Damon. So, here's the story of living in a truck. Here's one of the stories that I heard anyway. And, there's all kinds of stories in the truck driving industry that may or may not be true. This one's probably true, though. But, this couple, husband and wife team, gets hired by a trucking company. And, they're going to run team and they're going to drive truck. And their first load is from Toronto out to Vancouver. And so they get in the truck and away they go, pick up their load and off they go. And dispatch doesn't hear from them at all. And, there's a video here on the channel. I'll put it down in the description when we're finished here about dispatchers and the role of dispatchers. You need to keep in contact when you're on a long haul at least once every 24 hours with dispatch. So once a day you need to touch base with dispatch and let them know how you're doing and where you are, right? Because dispatch, you're connected up with dispatch, and dispatch's job is to connect available loads and freight with available trucks and drivers, right? And if you don't keep in touch with dispatch, you're not going to get another load, and you come back and you're not going to make any more money. Anyway, this team, went off. Dispatch didn't get a hold of it. Didn't talk to them for a couple of days. They're kind of wondering what's going on. And finally, after 3 days, they finally got a hold of them, and they said, "Well, where are you?" Because in 3 days they should have well been in Vancouver, and they said, "Oh, we're in Winnipeg." And the dispatch says, "Well, what are you doing? Oh, we're having a look around here and seeing all the stuff." And the dispatch is like, this probably isn't going to work out with you, because this couple thought that they could get in the truck and that they could go out and see the country and stop and have a look around and go and visit all the tourist sites and those types of things. That's not what trucking is. And if you're going to Vancouver from Toronto, you need to be there with a team. You need to be there in 48, 50 hours. That's what the run is. And it's hard slogging. And one of my favorite questions to ask drivers when I get them in the truck and I'm teaching them how to drive, because they're going to get their truck driving license, I said, and it's the same for bus drivers as well. I said to them, what do truck drivers do? Why do truck drivers get paid? Oh, and they're like, oh, they get paid to drive the truck. And I said, no, they really don't. I said, I drive my car all the time. Nobody pays me to drive my car. And they're like, oh, well, that's dumb. Because, they're thinking I'm an idiot because, yes, we do get paid to drive the truck. No, you don't get paid to drive the truck. You absolutely don't get paid to drive the truck. You don't get paid to drive the bus at all. That's not what you get paid for as a commercial driver. As a commercial driver in a truck or a bus, you get paid to transport freight, services, and people. That's what you get paid for, because that's what the trucking company, that's what the busing company gets paid for. They don't get paid for driving the vehicles around. They get paid for transporting the freight from point A to point B. They get paid for transporting people from point A to point B. If you're driving a vac truck, which is a service industry, you get paid from moving that truck from one place to another place and performing work at that different place. That's what you get paid for. You don't get paid for driving the truck. And so for truck drivers and bus drivers get paid for moving people between point A and point B according to a schedule. Truck drivers get paid for moving freight and services between point A and point B as quickly as humanly possible, according to hours of service regulation. That's what you get paid for. So for over-the-road truck drivers, you got to live in the truck. And we've all seen pictures of the truck. Yorker, how are you, my friend? Jonathan, 380, only in Georgia overdrive coming down Grapevine, so I've heard. Yeah. Yeah, can you do 100 miles an hour? Funny story. I'll tell you a story about that. Coming out of Louisville, Kentucky, back to Cincinnati on the interstate there, talking about what 380's talking about getting a truck to do 80, 82 or 85 miles an hour. There was a big hill there coming out of Louisville, going back to Cincinnati. I used to come down there in the truck. And of course, we had trucks. All of these trucks are governed now. Most of the trucks, like 98% of trucks on the highway, on the interstates, they're all governed. They only go 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour. That's top speed for most of these trucks. Unless it's a broker, they're governed. Okay? So I used to come down this hill, throw the transmission into neutral, and let the truck roll down the hill. And the truck would get up to about 85 mile an hour coming down this hill. And down right at the bottom of the hill, you go past this huge sign on the side of the road that said, site of fatal bus crash, May 6, 1988. And it used to make me chuckle every time I did that, because every time I went down that hill, I threw the transmission into neutral and let that thing just roll, scream down the hill. Okay, Carrie says, totally agreed. Our country needs to ramp up our testing capacity to test for this horrible virus. Yes, they do. 380, done it only once? Hell no, not again. Not throwing it into overdrive. All right, so yeah. And so living in a truck. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges of a truck. The first, and the other question that I get about kinds of trucks, people ask me this question all the time. They say, what is your preference for truck? And most people look at a Peterbilt 379. It's a beautiful truck. They look at a Kenworth and they think, with a big long nose on it, and they go, oh, that's a beautiful truck. And they are beautiful trucks. Don't get me wrong. They're absolutely gorgeous. But they're not great trucks to live in. They're not great trucks to live in. There are much better trucks to live in, especially if you want to go over the road and you're actually living in the truck. When I first started driving truck, I was a little crazy. I mean, the cab over international that I had, I did actually live into it. I actually moved into the truck and lived in it for a while. And then, that got old pretty quick. The Peterbilt 379, they're not the greatest bunks on these things. They're okay. Actually, the Volvos are the nicest trucks to live in. They have the nicest bunks. The driver's seat will turn 90 degrees so you can sit in the truck and be comfortable when you're just sitting in the truck reading or waiting or sitting in a load or those types of things. But, and the issue with the Kenworths with the big nose on them and the Peterbilt 379s is that you've got the seat here and you've got the seat there, and then there's kind of a hole that you go into the bunk. Whereas you get the Peterbilt 579s, you get the Freightliner condos, it's all open in the cab. There's no kind of distinguishing between the cab of the truck and the back into the bunk and those types of things. And what I'll show you here is I've got a few pictures and I'll show you this. up here. So basically what I did was I just put in, I just typed in truck bunks and transition this, and you can kind of see this here a little bit. I'll move this over if I can. No, make this a little bit bigger. Can I make that bigger? There we go. So you can kind of see this here with the seats, and this is all open here. This is the bed down here, and then the television is here. This is a cupboard, and then down here at the bottom is the refrigerator, and over here is the front of the bunk. And that's kind of the nicest one that you can get in terms of bunks, is the open ones for living in. They are the nicest ones to live in. The ones where you got to kind of climb through the hole, they're not very nice. You feel like you're in a cave when you're living in the truck. The ones that are open are nice because you can turn the seat and you can kind of sit in the seat. Like I said before, when you're waiting to get loaded, or you're at a truck stop, or you're trying to relax, or those types of things, the last place you want to be is in the driver's seat. I mean, you just sat in the driver's seat for 4 hours or 8 hours or however long it was. So you don't want to sit in the driver's seat. Even if it does turn and you can sit in it, you still don't want to sit in it. You know, when I first started driving in the early 1990s, I mean, bunk development was still coming along. And I mean, I literally had trucks where there's the back of the seat and there was the bed. I mean, that was it. You either sat in the driver's seat or you laid in the bunk. There wasn't any other room in the truck. Janet Hole, it's like doing a dance move to get into the back of the Pete. For comfort, I love my friend's Volvo. Yeah, and exactly. That's what Janet just said. She just confirmed what I said. You know, do you want a cave, or do you want a nice open concept in the truck? And I can remember when I was in the Peterbilt 379, living it with another guy, it was like, oh, that's just like awful. And whereas, you know, the Volvos are beautiful. We got in the Freightliner 379, and I can remember you could stand up between the seats. It was that high in the truck. You could stand up between the seats. It was nice because, I mean, you know, I can remember laying on the bed and laying back on the bed to pull my pants up to get dressed in the morning. So, you know, when you go to work for a company, if you're going to run long haul, do have a look at the trucks that they are, because, I mean, you know, those big trucks are nice. They're beautiful. They look nice going up and down the road, but they're not very nice to live in. So, and the other thing, you know, living on the road, you're either, you know, where are you going to park at night, right? There's rest areas. There's just pull-out areas along the side of the road. You can sleep in industrial areas. You can go into truck stops. The problem with truck stops, and this is a big concern if you start looking at truck stops, or you start looking at issues that they're talking about in terms of trucking circles and those types of things, parking is a big issue. So to get into a truck stop, you know, when I used to shower and I needed to have a shower to go into the truck stop, because I went into I had to go into the truck stop to get fuel, and the deal was, and it still is, that if you bought in 1990s it was 50 gallons of diesel fuel. I think now it's 100 gallons of diesel fuel. If you buy 100 gallons of diesel fuel, you get a free shower. Otherwise, you can go into a truck stop and pay $7 or $8, I think it is, and get yourself a shower. And so, you know, you would go in, fuel the truck up. And, you know, fueling a truck up is going to take you half an hour, because you're, you know, most of the time you're pumping 1,000 liters of fuel in, 300 gallons of fuel into the truck. So that's going to take a half an hour a bit. And then you go and park the truck. You got to gather up all your stuff, you know, all your toiletries and your clean clothes and those types of things. And you got a laundry bag, and you go into the truck stop and you get your receipt for your fuel. And then you tell them you want a shower, and they put you in the queue, in the line for getting a shower. Now it's all computerized. I've been in the Flying J here in Hope, and it's the same thing. You got to sign up for it, and then you go into the showers. And anybody who's been over the road and been into truck stops, there's a wide spectrum of cleanliness. You know, how old the showers are, how old the facility is, how gross the showers are. You know, I've been in showers. You know, there was one place in Gary, Indiana, which was just probably, it's still burned into my memory how disgusting the showers were. I mean, now saying that, the facility was under construction at the time, and they were renovating, which was really needed to be done, because it was pretty disgusting. The nicest shower I was ever in was in West Virginia. It was a Flying J, and it was just it was huge. It was at a seat. It was something else. I can remember how beautiful it was, and the other thing with showering in public showers, and I used to have this all the time, was I would get athlete's foot. And you got to use flip flops, right? You got to wear flip flops when you're in public showers. Same thing as when you're working out and in a sports facility and those types of things. I used to, the other thing with athlete's foot, you just put Absorbing Junior on your feet, and that will kill athlete's foot. But that's something that you're going to deal with, and you got towels and those types of things. So you go in and get a shower, but you have to understand that getting a shower at a truck stop, Jonathan, how disgusting. It was disgusting. There was like mold and everything, and it wasn't very big, and there was a toilet in there, and it was like, oh, it was nasty. It was like, Jonathan, I think the best description would be it was like having a shower in an outhouse. It was that disgusting. And so, going in and having a shower is an hour to an hour and a half going into a truck stop to have a shower. It's a lot of work, right? And, most of the time when I was on the road, I only showered once every couple of days. Just because it was so much work, and because I only put fuel in the truck every couple of days. When I was on the road, I kind of refused to pay $10 for a shower. So anyway, Epic, I really like your story, and I'm wondering if some truckers order a custom bed for the sleeper cab just in case if they don't want to know they're never cabs. No, very few truck drivers will share the change out the mattress. They just put on new sheets and those types of things. Farron, I have stopped and slept on the side of the dark roads many times. It is intense. Yeah, people are known to be killed and violated out there. Did you have any protection while you were driving at night? Farron, I haven't. I've been, it was always, I always felt fairly safe in the truck. And I slept in all kinds of places, on the side of the road and pullouts. I slept in industrial areas. As I was saying the other day when I drove in New York City, I mean, people used to say that New York City was dangerous and those types of things. I slept in Brooklyn, and I can remember coming out of the warehouse after I woke up, and I went past the security guard, and the security guard giving me a very weird look when I was driving out of the warehouse. And there was a place in Manhattan, and, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, I ran really hard. So there were days, 10, 12 hours, I was pushing up and down the highway. And by the time I just pull over someplace and get tired. But the thing is that eventually you go into sleep debt. And, there were times when I was trying to go home or trying to go somewhere, and I was literally exhausted, and I would pull over somewhere and climb in the bunk, and I would wake up 13 or 14 hours later because I was completely and utterly exhausted. And there was another time in Manhattan, and I was in Manhattan, and I just pulled the truck up on the sidewalk and went to sleep. I just locked the doors and went to sleep, never had a problem. So I never had a problem, but like I said, probably there were some, some places in metropolitan areas. Okay, so now let's talk about the place that I did not feel safe. There was only one place that I didn't feel safe, and that was in New Jersey. We delivered to this place in New Jersey, and so the story went. I got there in the morning. I was supposed to have an 8 o'clock appointment. I got there at 7:15 in the morning, and there's 3 trucks in front of me. And so I went into them and I said, "Listen, I have an appointment for 8 o'clock in the morning. Is that true or not?" And they said, "No, it's a window." So then I said, "Okay, do you have a phone that I can use?" Because remember, this is before cell phones. And they said, "No, we don't have. You can't use the phone." Because they're in behind what I suspected was bulletproof glass. They were in behind glass. I don't know whether it was bulletproof or not, but anyway, it didn't give me a very secure feeling. And so I said, "Well, do you know where there's a payphone that I can use?" And they said, "Well, down the road at the gas station." I said, "Okay." And so I walked through the neighborhood. There's like nobody, broken sidewalks. Everything's dilapidated. Every building has bars on the window. That place in New Jersey, when I walked down to the gas station, I mean, I could see the Statue of Liberty. I did not feel safe. That was the one place that I didn't feel safe. But at one and the same time, I only delivered there. I did not stay there. Okay, I didn't stay there. As soon as I got unloaded, of course, I had another drop, and my boss and dispatch and everything else was all beside themselves because it was a window, not an appointment. And they said to me, well, why were you not first? I said, listen, I got here at 7:15 this morning. My delivery was for 8 o'clock. I said, I'm not late, but the 3 trucks in front of me were going to be unloaded before me, and that was kind of the way that it went. So I didn't feel unsafe, and most of the time I felt safe when I was driving in the States. Okay. 380, our company will replace the mattress upon request with driver changes. Custom mattresses or bunks I've only seen with owner operators. Yes, same thing. 380. That's really great that your company will replace the mattresses, because as I said before, the other thing that happened, I was slip seating. It's called sleep seating when you move between different trucks, and I got in some of these trucks, and they were pretty disgusting. I mean, it's kind of like going into somebody else's house, and you figure out guys and what they live like and what their cleanliness is in terms of being in the truck. And for me personally, when I lived in the truck and when I was driving over the road, my boots stayed at the driver's seat. Okay, so when I went into the bunk, I took my boots off. Okay, because it's like I said to people, I live in there. You don't get to wear your shoes in my living space. And so that's what it was. But I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time cleaning trucks, when I moved into them and those types of things. Okay, Jonathan, ironic how truck drivers are so underappreciated and the things they went through to deliver goods and services. Now with this coronavirus, they're so much more appreciated. Yes, indeed they are. Absolutely no doubt. Farron, I'm surprised I have not been a victim of an attack despite being alone. I just got lucky, I suppose. Yeah, well, Farron, let's just hope that your luck continues. So, living on the road, especially in the 1990s, I mean, now that we have cell phones and now we have social media, we have GPS units in trucks and those types of things, it's really broken down the isolation. I mean, when I was driving in the 1990s before cell phones and those other technological devices, it was lonely. And last little bit, you got to eat. And for the most part, when I was driving truck, I mean, some guys are creative as heck when it comes to living on the road and living in their truck. Some guys will have barbecues, and they'll flip the barbecue out on the back of the truck, and they'll in the truck stops and those types of things. I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge in the wintertime. Some of these trucks today will have microwaves in them. You can get kettles that plug in to the, into the outlet. I had a kettle. I'll tell you my funny story about kettles that I learned. I got myself a new kettle, and I'm like, oh my God, I can make soup. I can have soup while I'm going up and down the road. So I get the kettle all boiled, and it took a while for the kettle to boil because it wasn't like, the kettle at home. So it took 20 minutes or so for the kettle to boil. I was all excited. Had a big Tim Hortons travel mug. Put the soup in, and then I'm pouring the boiling water as I'm driving down the road, of course, right? And I learned very quickly that you only fill the cup half full, because what happened is the first time this happened, I'm going down the road, I'm holding the cup, I'm pouring the hot water into it, filled it too full, and just as I got the cup full, I went over this huge bump, the water went up out of the cup and come right down on me tenders. I boiled me tenders. That's the new definition of distracted driving. So yes, so when you're driving truck and you're dealing with hot liquid, only fill the cup half full. Yes, half full. Okay? So I had a cooler in the truck because I didn't have a refrigerator. And so the last bit, like I said, when I went back driving 3 years ago, 2016, I had a refrigerator in the truck. I had a microwave in the truck. Very nice. Very nice. But I did have a cooler and basically ate out of the cooler, had my kettle and those types of things. Every now and again, I would stop and eat in restaurants. But for the most part, I didn't eat in restaurants. As I said, in the 1990s when I was driving, there was a time when, the Canadian dollar was 50 cents on the American dollar. So it was very expensive to eat out in the States. Okay. Jonathan, I'm curious, do truck drivers have portable toilets in their trucks? How do they handle their business while on the road? Jonathan, you need to, I think it's number 1 or number 2 story. We had a very candid conversation about going to the bathroom. You do stop at rest areas for number 2s, but a lot of truck drivers will pee in a bottle. Pee in a bottle. I'll tell you some more stories about that. More distracted driving. 380. I've noticed that when the odometer in our truck rolls over 300K, they immediately turn into piles of crap and smell as such. We'll off to work. Catch you on the replay. Have a great one. You as well, 380. Thanks so much. Yes, me tenders got boiled. So, living on the road has its challenges. Living in a truck definitely has its challenges. Living out of a cooler, eating food out of a microwave, those types of things. And to stay healthy, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge to eat well. And, so for me, I had food in a cooler. And you can do that fairly well. You can do it fairly well. Ryan, when you drove truck in the 1990s, is all truck manual back then? Oh yeah, Ryan, absolutely everything. There was absolutely no automatics in the 1990s. Wheelman, your thoughts on the new adaptive loading axles? Any good? Not a fan. Wheelman, I would have to look that up because I don't know about it, but I'll definitely have a look at that. All right, so that's the end of today. The kids are going to come in and tell you what we've been learning today. So as the bonus here, the kids come in and we talk about homeschooling.
Mine.
Okay, so.
Mine.
No, there you go. All right, so you got to look at the camera. You got to look at the camera
I'm
over there.
looking over there.
Okay, so what did we learn about?
My name is Byrne for the people who are new to this.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, there you go. Good.
I poked you in the eye.
Okay, you can't poke him in the eye. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yesterday we were learning about God and the devil, and how the devil. He was an angel, but now he's an archangel, and he became a devil, and he rules hell.
And the first angel, also, which is the devil, the angel who wanted to become the devil, he dropped a mountain on God's penis.
He dropped a mountain.
There was a war.
And he dropped
the
it
mountain.
on God's
No, you didn't need to say that bit to the world.
He dropped it on God's penis. He dropped it on God's penis.
Okay, so let's move on to that. So
I like the story about, and just saying it was Daddy who thought about that. Like
yeah, okay.
Mr. Daddy who thought about that the devil dropped.
Okay, stop. Okay, what? So how did we get into the conversation of God and the devil? How did that conversation come about?
Because we were thinking about Marvel.
Marvel. What particularly about Marvel?
The Ghost Rider. He is the guy who gave his soul to the devil if his dad got better, and his dad got better, but then the devil murdered him. Ow!
All right. Yes. No. The devil didn't murder him. The devil caused an accident that killed his dad. Right. So he reneged on his contract. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a trickster as well. All right, so that's where we learned about all of
that. He's
that.
got the power of fire.
Okay.
I want that.
There we go. All right, so that was homeschooling yesterday. Homeschooling was, I think the topic was religion in terms of what we were doing in terms of homeschooling. All right, so we'll leave it there for today. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay,
Read the story about the devil dropping a mountain on God's penis.
No. So what birds did we see this morning when we were out walking?
We saw a pheasant and a red robin.
Yes, so it's definitely spring.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to leave it there. We'll say goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll talk more about trucking. I'll put up the topic for tomorrow on the community tab. So have a look at that and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Bye now.
Bye.